When we think of chiropractic care, we often associate it with spinal adjustments for pain relief. That's always what I thought of. However, recent scientific studies have shed light on an intriguing connection between chiropractic manipulation and long-term brain health, which is what this podcast is all about. And of course, the function of our brain. So this emerging field of research suggests that chiropractic adjustments can have a positive impact on our brain health long-term, of course, promoting overall well-being beyond just the musculoskeletal benefits. Right, Josh?
Yeah.
In today's episode, we'll be interviewing Josh Logan. Dr. Joshua Logan. He's from the True North Health Center, which recently got rebranded in Colorado Springs. And together we're going to delve into some of the research surrounding the benefits of chiropractic care and how it offers substantial advantages for not just immediate pain relief, but also long-term brain health and function. We'll talk about some different approaches to chiropractic management, as well as some of the hard questions. And of course, I'm going to leave you some tips to help you select a high quality chiropractor for you and your family and your loved ones. Dr. Joshua Logan, alongside with his wife, his beautiful wife, Dr. Taylor Logan, own and operate their own private practice, True North Health Center in beautiful Colorado Springs. His personal mission is to see every individual live out their true purpose and potential. And since opening his practice in 2018, he has been able to help thousands of individuals remove health barriers. I love that. So that they can fully live out their God-given purpose and potential. Amen. So Dr. Josh he was born in Denver, Colorado, so he's a native. But he's resided most of his early life in Florida. Hey, go Florida. Go Gators.
That's right.
He received his Bachelor of Science in Applied Physiology and Kinesiology. Can you muscle test? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah, it is a form of chiropractic, but they didn't teach you that in college.
In Florida? Okay, well, cool. Sorry, an aside here. And he got his degree in the University of Florida, go Gators. And he later received his doctorate of chiropractic at Palmer College of Chiropractic. He later received his board certification in neurology from the American College of Physical Medicine. So are you a chiropractic neurologist?
Technically it's neuropathy, so not neurology, but neuropathy.
Okay. Did I misread your... Probably. So, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Josh. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to joining you.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're doing this. I think this is so valuable. Like we were saying beforehand, I think that the ability for people to really understand the care that they're going to receive is so important to empowering them to choose well and not lose confidence by choosing poorly and having bad experiences. I think you really need to be engaged in your own health, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So, Josh, I think what you and your team do is extremely important. Obviously, I think it's so important. I'm having you on my podcast, but it's also been incredibly important in our personal health journey. You were one of the first providers that I established care with for my son who has Lyme disease when we got here in 2020. I knew that his Lyme protocol with supplementation, detoxification, nutrition was super important, but it's going to be limited if I didn't have good chiropractic care. I knew that. I just knew that. So I was so thankful for your support in that process. Why do you think it's so important to implement chiropractic care with something like a chronic neurologic Lyme disease?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to thank you for trusting us, obviously, with your family with that. But it really all comes down to adaptability. And I think you and I know how important that is for overall health and function. And chiropractic at the root source really helps just increase your body's adaptability. Knowing that the nervous system controls everything, it controls how you adapt. Chiropractic directly works with the nervous system to help the immune system, the nervous system, organ systems, all of that function the way that it was supposed to, especially with, you think of a neurologic Lyme disease, that's really attacking the central nervous system. And so with chiropractic, we focus on the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system too, but basically the brain and spinal cord and all those nerves. And so when you have those function as optimally as possible, the body can adapt and heal the way that it was supposed to.
So it's like the ultimate adaptogen. It's like an adaptogen. It technically falls into. No, I'm just. It's like the definition of adaptogen, except it's gentle manipulation. That's wonderful. Oh well, that gives me. I know you just said this is not to say manipulation, but we'll talk about it in a little bit here. So I've heard a lot about how proper spinal alignment provides efficient communication. You guys do a great job educating. I thought that was wonderful. These guys will take a chart. I love it because when I brought my 17-year-old and like the team sat him down and said, look, this area, and this area are affected, and these are the organs affected. Yeah. I thought this was beautiful. So it's obvious that proper alignment is important for efficient communication to and from organ systems. So obviously it's important to maintain good spinal alignment. Can you help us understand that process a little bit more?
Yes. We can dive into some research here too. Have you heard of Dr. Henry Windsor before?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so he actually did this huge research study. He's a medical doctor, where he actually took, I believe, let me see if I have it on here. He took 75 human cadavers, and what he wanted to find is looking at organ dysfunction, basically organ disease, and he traced that nerve that went to that organ for function back to the spine. And what he found is that 95% of those individuals that had organ disease also had specific misalignments right where that nerve went into the spinal column.
Wow.
Which is crazy to think about.
Wow.
So again, as a
95%, that's a pretty
95%. So that doesn't mean a causation, but there is correlation.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, any misalignment in the spine can put pressure and irritation onto the nerve that's going to that organ system. University of Colorado, they actually did a research study where they, I believe it was 10 millimeters of mercury, or like a dime-sized weight. They put that on a nerve root and it reduced the stimulation or communication through that nerve up to 60%.
Holy cow.
And so with that being said, again, I do not want only 40% communication go to my heart or my lungs or my very important organs. And so there is exactly. So there's direct communication from your brain down your spinal cord out through those nerves to get to those organs. And when there's any miscommunication, it's kind of like a traffic jam on the highway. You have to go around or you just don't get through. And so there can be a lot of miscommunication and dysfunction that comes with spinal dysfunction with that.
A dime size
weight. It's so small, but can make a huge difference. So you got to think, so many people are walking around. If you take, I have a dimmer switch in this room right now. If you have the dimmer switch all the way down, the room is not that bright, but so many people are walking around just with only functioning at about 40% when they could be functioning at 100%. So that's, again, a big mission of mine, is just to help people just live to their fullest potential through that.
Amen. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. And I think that I just think back on when I was working in surgery, operating on the spine.
Yeah.
Now, how many times we could have probably prevented a lot of our surgical manipulations that we did with just excellent chiropractic alignment and care. So it's so unfortunate, but so that's the whole reason we're out here talking about this. I hope more people get engaged in preventative and not having to go to the surgery side. So let's shift gears to talking about chronic stress, because that's something that keeps us a repetitive theme in my podcast for sure. That stress is a major contributor to declining cognitive function as we age, as well as a major contributor to chronic health issues. And the population, like the younger population, is experiencing more and more chronic health issues. I think it's something like 67% of people have at least 2 diagnoses by the time they're 45 years old. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's 2/3 of the population. So that's huge. So from what I understand, chiropractic care can help reduce overall physical and emotional stress. Can you tell us how that works?
Yes. And again, it all comes back to the nervous system. So I'm sure you've heard of the fight or flight response system, and that is all about the sympathetic nervous system. And but it also goes directly with the parasympathetic nervous system, which is known as the rest and digest system of the body. So that is all the autonomic nervous system. So that's the automatic. It happens on its own. So most people, especially Americans, are constantly in this fight or flight response system, meaning stress is super high. It basically feels like you're being chased by an animal that's trying to kill you all the time. So blood pressure goes up and your body's just not in a state to heal. And so with that being said,
or detoxify.
Exactly. And so with that being said, chiropractic, what it does is, like I mentioned with adaptability, but it also balances the nervous system. And so for individuals that are constantly in this fight or flight response, constantly stressed, an adjustment can actually stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, to start to bring that body more into harmony. That way, both nervous systems are not attacking or fighting or competing against each other, but they can actually work together the way that they're designed to, because stress is a good thing. It really is. I'm sure everybody knows about eustress sometimes, which is the good stress in the body. Right. But most of the time, we're constantly in this stress state that over time really leads to dysfunction. You can't detoxify, you can't heal, and that leads to a lot of the disease.
Can't assimilate nutrition.
Exactly.
I mean, we want the good stress, the kind that we go lift weights and we get stronger,
Exactly.
Or we run a half a mile and the next day we can run 3/4 of a mile. But we don't want that chronic stress that drives the cortisol up. And causes, I don't know, things like diabetes. So, my question for you is on this, how you apply chiropractic care to some of the really stubborn situations. Because I find in my practice that a lot of people have kind of this like long-term fight or flight, like childhood built on a teenage adult. Now we're in this rat race of life, but we have this undealt with traumatic experience as a child that's literally primed their nervous system for like fight or flight response. Do you find that some people are harder to bring out of that state? Do you do things differently for people that you find are in that kind of state?
Yeah, that's such a hard question too. But again, it really is having to retrain the nervous system. The hardest people to help are people that don't want to be helped. And so, as you've probably mentioned, sometimes people take their childhood traumas and things, and they become an identity for them, and to where they don't want to let it go. Especially when it comes to health, with illnesses, people can make that an identity. And so being able to not only encourage and bring hope and truly help people to realize, hey, this is not the person you were designed to be. Right. You're designed to be able to heal and really flourish. And so that is a big thing that we do, is we call ourselves hope dealers, where we want to be able to just deliver hope to people. That's a big thing that we focus on. But from a nervous system standpoint, especially with people that are very much stuck in that sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, we have to really see how we need to adjust the body. Oftentimes we do not want to mix nervous system segments. So that means I don't want to adjust maybe the atlas, which is specifically for the parasympathetic nervous system, versus T6, the middle back, which can influence the sympathetic. So if you adjust both at the same time for someone who is really struggling in those nervous system states, it could actually put them in a disservice. And so,
that's brilliant.
So there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration on the front end to make sure that we're truly helping our patients to be able to thrive.
I like what you said about the identity around that. I actually had this conversation with a patient of mine yesterday. She's like, I'm trying to tell my family that I don't want to talk about my Lyme disease because I'm not my Lyme disease. There's a period of grieving when we understand that we have something that's okay, and you kind of have to wrap your head around. But I really found it, I was really encouraged by her taking that ownership of like, I am not Lyme disease. I am not this, I'm me. I have a personality, and the disease is just a bump in the road. And so that's a great reminder to our audience that, it's easy to get caught up in that kind of, it disempowers you. when you do that. So, a lot of, you have to work a little bit with our headspace as well as with your practitioner. But I also think it was brilliant what you said about mixing the different areas of the spine and adjustment. That I found that to be something very unique in your practice, having gone to chiropractors for many years. When we'll go back into that a little bit more in the upcoming questions. So let's move on and talk. The other thing I thought was really cool when I was looking at this information, sorry, I wanted to bring this part in, was that you kind of touched on it with the adaptability piece that you said, but there's actually some good research recently, like I can't name the article, but I just came across it. It was amazing. It actually showed that chiropractic care improves your neuroplasticity as you age. So I thought that was huge. It's not just huge for our adults, but it's also important for the kids. There's so many kids with ADHD now. It's like the number one prescribed drug in children, right? So, and the study particularly showed that the neuroplasticity was specific to memory and function, and memory, function, and attention. So obviously those things that ADHD and dementia both have in common. So that was really interesting. So I've read a lot of studies about, as I was preparing for this interview, about how chiropractic care can enhance blood flow and oxygenation to the brain. And that's actually something I never really thought about until I was seeing your team and you guys talked about it. It's like, wow, you guys are really, you know what you're doing. But that obviously enhances brain function. I've experienced it plenty of times where I'm like, whoa, I feel better after an adjustment just because this, all of a sudden I'm getting blood flow again to the brain. It's an amazing thing. Obviously that's really important because it improves your alertness and functionability. And obviously in anesthesia, I'm in a hypervigilant practice where I'm constantly having to be alert. That's super important in my job. It's important in any high stress, hypervigilant job, professional athlete. I think it's important for all people, and clearly that should have an impact on long-term brain health. My question is, do you know of any studies, or are you aware of how it affects long-term brain health? Do you think that it could?
Yes, and there's a lot of research out there to not only improve long-term brain health, but even just the blood flow to the brain, which your brain needs nutrition. Basically, blood is the food that brings that to the brain. And so if you think of the curvature of the neck, that plays a direct influence on the nutrition that gets to the brain. When you start to lose that curvature, it actually reduces blood flow into the brain. What I'm very concerned about is our kids these days, where they're constantly looking down at their phones, at a computer, and we're seeing more and more kids with a reversed curvature. And so ideally, we would like to see the curvature in the neck be anywhere from 40 to 60 degrees as like a C-shaped curve. But as you lose that curvature, the spine starts to straighten out. It starts to stretch the vertebral arteries, and that actually will lead to decreased blood flow back up into the brain. And they're actually finding a lot of correlation now between decreased blood flow and nutrition to the brain to, again, degenerative disorders. So that's, again, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. And so, again, just showing how important it is for proper blood flow to the brain, which is directly correlated to the curvature in your spine, which chiropractors directly help with, can make a huge influence for long-term health and preventing any of those neurodegenerative disorders as well.
100%. There was a study when I was like a new PA in like 2008 or something like that came out. It was about sleep apnea.
Oh, yeah.
It was the first study I saw about that, that had that kind of data, where it was like when it linked sleep apnea to dementia. Like it was the first kind of big study that showed that. And to me, honestly, if you reduce oxygenation to the brain, which your blood carries your oxygen, that's the same thing. Sleep apnea, what the problem is we're going apneic. We're not oxygenating our blood. So if that has a brain impact, it's kind of logical to me that anything that can contribute to a reduction in blood flow and oxygen delivery to the brain is going to have a similar impact. So I don't know. That just kind of, I know that's sort of mixed, but it totally makes sense to me.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. I want people to realize that you can think through these things. They're logical. Like a lot of science and medicine is, it's logic. You just got to think through it, So since we're talking about blood flow to the brain, let's hit a hard question. Of course, I work in anesthesia, so I see a lot of surgeries, and I worked as a PA before, saw a lot of surgeries then and did a lot of surgeries. So the question of cervical, oh my gosh, when I did cervical surgeries, nobody had good comments for chiropractors. It was just not something that we thought that was unsafe, or that's what the understanding in the community felt like. Okay. And the question often comes up about the safety of cervical adjustments. Every now and then I still get it. In fact, it was not literally 2 months ago when I was in the doctor's lounge talking to a local surgeon, and she told me that her practice sees at least one major complication a year from chiropractic adjustments. And I think there's also some big press that came out recently with there's a girl that ended up paralyzed in North Carolina from a chiropractic. It was horrible headlines. I'm sure that the news just loved to take that headline and make all chiropractors look bad. But so there's all those questions, and there's plenty of people. I still run into average lay people who are like, should I go get an adjustment? I'm not sure. Is it safe? So I've thought that was kind of weird, because I actually have always had an adjustment. Even before I was in medicine, I was getting adjustments, but it is something I hear a good bit. So the question I would say is, what do you know of the data and the statistics on the safety of chiropractic adjustment? I mean, I feel like you're at risk getting in your car, more likely to get hit by a car driving your car down the road than you are to get injured from a chiropractic adjustment. But what do you know of that?
Yeah, and so the chiropractic adjustment is really, really safe. So you using the analogy with dying in a car crash. So you have 1 in 101 chance, 1 in 101 chance of dying in a car crash just by walking out, getting in your car and driving to your local store. When it comes to chiropractic,
it's 1%.
Maybe more here in Colorado. I don't know.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to chiropractic. So what the research has shown, the studies have shown that you have a risk of 1 to 3 incidents per 1 million adjustments. So
that's very common.
Very, very minimal. And so with that being said, again, I always like to ask, like, what is your malpractice insurance cost as well? And so for us, like for chiropractors, our malpractice insurance is very, very minimal, very affordable. And you got to think, if the insurance companies are constantly having to pay out all of this money to help injured people from chiropractors, insurance would be crazy high. And so thankfully, again, we really don't pay much when it comes to our insurance because it is so safe. And in fact, I mean, I've adjusted all 3 of my kids just a couple of hours after being born. It's so gentle. My wife was actually saved because of a chiropractic adjustment. She actually stopped breathing just 3 hours after being born. They were in the middle of the nowhere. It was a home birth, and they couldn't get to a hospital.
Oh my gosh.
Dad had just graduated from chiropractic school. And so resuscitation, all of that was not working. And he actually checked the upper neck, and she had a misalignment, and he gently adjusted her, and she immediately started breathing after that. And so, when it comes to the risk, there's risks with everything, obviously. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. There's a lot of pretty terrible chiropractors out there, as you probably are dealing with, again, a lot of terrible anesthesiologists and PAs and things like that, but there's a lot of really good ones.
Terrible providers in every field. Terrible ones and great ones.
You always got to take the risk benefit. And with what we have seen, the benefits have consistently outweighed the risks when it comes to any type of adjustment.
I agree 100%. I had my babies all once I finished anesthesia school and I actually found a chiropractor again. I had all of my babies adjusted very shortly after being born, several weeks whenever I got back to the chiropractor. I had no fear of that at all. In fact, I knew that would help their brain and their body and their adaptability and all those things. So I was not scared at all. And it's not something.
The research even shows, so just babies going through the birthing process. It can be pretty traumatic for a baby going through a small canal. Medical doctors, they've done research on this, and they found over 90% of these babies have some misalignment in their spine after the birthing process. And so people are like, hey, babies aren't in pain. Like, why would you adjust a baby? Again, it's not always about pain.
It's about function.
But about function, and significantly reduces risks of, again, ear infections, sleep apnea for kiddos. I mean, sudden infant death syndrome, all of those things, which we can go into a lot of different things about that. But just
that
being
would be
able
interesting.
to latch properly and be able to sleep properly, which means mom and dad are happy as well.
Right. Yeah. The whole family unit has less stress overall. That's interesting. I had a thought about that and I just lost it, but that was really interesting. Oh, I was thinking about, you were talking about the delivery through the birth canal.
Yeah.
I've watched thousands of C-sections. And I would say that those are also pretty hard on the spine of a baby because we were trying to make as small of an incision as possible in the mother's abdomen and the uterus. And it is ergonomic. I mean, we can get the baby out, but I'm always like, oh, we're pulling on we're pulling on the head. We're pulling, it looks like it's very unnatural. And it would surprise me if those babies didn't have some sort of misalignment.
Because it is unnatural.
It is unnatural. Yeah.
And it's amazing the amount of torticollis cases we get in our practice after cesarean sections. And
really?
And it's, again, with you too, I mean, it's so important for that baby to have proper gut health after that too, because the first instance of proper gut health is through the vaginal canal. And so when you totally bypass that and go through a cesarean section, the baby is not getting the proper immune system response that it needs to start healthy. So that's a whole other topic too.
Not getting exposed to that flora that isn't designed to be exposed to. That is absolutely, no question, independent risk factor, something I actually ask on my intake form on all my patients. I don't care if they're 60 years old. I'm asking if they were born by C-section or, or if they were nursed or if they were bottle fed. And those are all really important points. Yeah. So give us your kind of overall chiropractic technique and philosophy. Talk to us about that. What makes yours a little different?
For sure. So our technique, we pride ourselves in being what's called neurologically based, meaning we specialize in focusing on the nervous system function and how that relates to the structure of the spine. And so you can go to so many different chiropractors throughout this city, and they'll have different philosophies of what they're doing. One may be, hey, I'm just trying to get you out of pain. One may be, hey, I'm just trying to make this joint move a little bit better. And they don't even focus about function or pain. But for us, we're all about nervous system function. And so we practice what's called the Gonstead method and analysis. So it's a technique to adjust the spine, but it's also an analysis to know exactly when you need to adjust, but very, very importantly, what you don't need to adjust. And I think that's more important than what you adjust as well. Yeah. And so really when it comes to our technique, we use different instruments. We use x-ray analysis. We do different palpation. I mean, you notice people come in our office, they wear gowns so we could see what the spine looks like. If there's any blemishes along the spine, which are called pseudorefrous changes, fancy term, but we use a 5-step analysis every single time that an individual's in our office to know what we need to adjust, but also we're able to see progress through that analysis at the same time too.
Now, I noticed you do some things also pretty differently. You check in like every so often, you check in and you do not just self-assessment, but you do some not just subjective but objective measurements besides x-ray. That last one that you did was an HRV test, right? So what were you looking for on an HRV? What is that?
Yes.
Maybe some people might know what HRV is now that there's all the Oura rings, and maybe they're watching it on their Apple. But yeah, right. But maybe some people don't know what your HRV is and why a chiropractor would be measuring an HRV. Can you talk to us about what that?
Yeah. So HRV stands for heart rate variability, and I feel like it's a pretty popular topic right now, just because. A lot of tests and studies are showing this to be one of the gold standards for adaptability of the nervous system. And I know we keep talking about this as well too. And because chiropractic directly contributes to how well your body can adapt, we like to test for that in our office. And so we like to get a baseline to know where they're at from an adaptability standpoint. And when you think of heart rate, you just think of, all right, 60 beats per minute. This is measuring the variability in between the beats. And you want them to be more variable than less variable, because the more variable that you have, your body can adapt to stress. The less means that your body is not going to do well if your body comes across a disease, illness, stress in the body. And so we're able to directly test for that in the office, and then we are able to adjust and see improvements with that. And we can also look at other areas, because nutrition plays a huge role with that. Sleep plays a huge role. Right. What you're doing for exercise, how you're doing for management of stress, whether that's meditation, prayer, hot, cold showers, breathing, all of those. So we look at all of those areas, because we have basically a stage in our practice, which is what we call lifestyle optimization, where we truly want to get to the root cause and help people truly have an optimized life as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, several things came across my mind as you were talking about the heart rate variability. One was in medicine. So in pediatrics, like if you come to the hospital, or not pediatrics, OBGYN, you're about to deliver a baby, come to the hospital and they're checking your baby, you're about to deliver your baby, they're putting a strap across your belly and they're measuring the heart rate. And actually what we're looking for, besides that we have a high heart rate, because babies should have really high heart rates, is this variability. They actually will call an emergency C-section if the variability changes drastically. So HRV is something we're looking already for in a neonatal situation, like as a sign of a healthy and thriving baby intrauterine. So it's just kind of something that's just, we're applying it now to adults. The other thing I thought about, and I don't know where to go with this, but I see tons of patients on beta blockade, which is a medication where they basically slow the heart rate in order to, there's several reasons we do it, right? We do it for people with anxiety and PTSD in the younger populations, but we also do it for blood pressure management. But the concern I have, I don't know, it totally eliminates your HRV. Like your heart rate is 62. I don't care what happens in surgery. It's 62. It's 62, whether you're bleeding out, it's 62, whether you're stable, it's 62, like it's 60 all the time. And it's got to affect something with our nervous system. I don't know. That's just a random, I have nothing smart to say about it, except that you made me think of it when you were talking about the HRV. There has to be an impact somewhere, side effect from blocking the rhythm, the rate variability of your heart.
Absolutely.
So when I sent you this information to kind of look over just to get, prepared and stuff, there are a few things that you helped me understand. So there's difference between adjustment and manipulation, even in verbiage and language. So, and you kind of started to touch on the technique that you used when we talked about, like, what's your practice philosophy? Can you just give us kind of an overview of the different types of chiropractic techniques there are? And like, do you think that some are safer than others? Yeah. And what is the difference between manipulation and adjustment?
Yeah. So I guess I could always kind of bring it back to manipulation versus adjustment. I've always just been squeamish with that term. Just no one ever likes to be manipulated. Like, I'm manipulating you right now. Right? Good point. So just thinking about that manipulation, it all kind of started. So chiropractic, osteopathic medicine, like all of that have started kind of around the same time. Physical therapists, they've kind of gone through that as well too. But manipulation is, in all, a very gross manipulation, basically gross movement of a joint, basically.
Mhm.
A specific adjustment is specific.
Mhm.
You find that one segment that's misaligned. You're not trying to adjust everything around it just to get that segment moving. You want to be
Mhm.
specific with it. And so in our practice, we call it a sniper approach versus a shotgun approach. And so,
Yeah, that's definitely something I noticed was very different about your practice. When I
so
had gone previously, I lay down and they just,
yeah,
and you didn't do that. So
for
yeah,
sure. And so if you've ever shot a shotgun before, you shoot one bullet, bunch of pellets come out, and you hope to hit the target.
right.
And then same thing with manipulation. You adjust a bunch of the spine and hope that one of those adjustments may have helped the patient in front of you. With us, we have a full analysis. We call it a sniper approach, where we use just one specific adjustment to adjust that misalignment. But what we find is that when you over adjust the spine, you can actually overstimulate the nervous system as well. So you'll notice in our practice, we typically don't adjust more than 3 segments at times,
Yeah.
just because you can overstimulate the body and the nervous system at that. And so
Right.
we use objective data to know where there is the most nerve inflammation using basically thermography in our practice to see where the heat changes are based on inflammation. And we adjust based off of that. And so my biggest recommendation for people is just to find a chiropractor that has an analysis. And so, again,
Beyond X-rays,
beyond x-rays as well.
because I
X-rays,
think most chiropractors will. Well, that's my analysis. X-ray. Like,
yeah, and surprisingly, not many chiropractors x-ray. And so,
what?
yeah, I'm sure you've heard of the Joint franchise. They're
Oh,
they're all over the United States, and they don't do any X-rays in their practice. And so, and
it's a little concerning.
no, again, they're great referral partners for us, but
Right.
but especially for that, it's just a different philosophy with that and different specialties. So because of our specific specialty, we do take on a lot of the harder cases that
Sure.
other chiropractors were not able to help. And so, and that's the thing too, is some people may have already been to chiropractors and they say, oh, chiropractor didn't work for me. Maybe it was just the analysis. Maybe they didn't take x-rays. Maybe they didn't do a specific motion study x-ray to know exactly the millimeter and degree of the misalignment to know how to correct it. And so there's so many different techniques out there, but what resonated to me the most was the Gonstead method because of how specific it is for each specific segment throughout the whole entire spine. There's techniques called upper cervical chiropractors, and they just focus on the top 2 bones in the neck. They're amazing at the analysis and adjustment of those areas. So we have taken that approach, and we've actually looked at all segments throughout the whole spine to know how we need to adjust it and be as specific as possible for that. And because of that, we get really good results.
Yeah, you do. So what I kind of heard there was, because, the goal for me is to help equip people with the tools to select the right provider for them and their specific needs, and to not choose somebody who's know how to ask the right questions, right? To keep themselves safe, but also have the right provider to resonate with them. I'm not the right provider for every patient, like who has brain health issues, right? There's a provider for everyone. So what I kind of heard you say is like, if you're looking for a chiropractor and you're trying to figure out the right fit for you, some of what maybe this is what I heard in the background. Figure out what your philosophy, what are you looking for in a chiropractor? Are we looking for improved functionality, overall health support, or just pain relief and joint mobility? Like those are the 3 that I heard, like health, pain, or mobility. I can get my pain relieved. Believe me, I walked into your office plenty of times unable to move and walked out. But I believe you can get that all in one place. But if your goal is just I want to get in and get my pain relief, then there's a chiropractor for you that's got a philosophy that fits that mold. Is that kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really all comes down to our patients' goals.
Right.
Some patients, they come in, there's like, hey, doc, I just want one adjustment. I want this area to move. We're most likely going to send them to the joint right down the street. And so that's why I mentioned that they're a great referral partner, because some of the patients don't want long-term optimal health. And so, again, when it comes to questions, I would always ask, like, do you take x-rays?
Right.
Do you take post x-rays to keep the chiropractor accountable that they're making the structural changes that they should be?
Right. So we're doing objective. We're not just saying I feel better, but we're also getting some objective data.
Exactly. And then do you have an analysis to know each visit what you should be adjusting and what you shouldn't be adjusting? Those are some of the main questions that I would ask if I am looking for a chiropractor, or if we're referring our patients to other chiropractors that have traveled out of state or things like that as well too.
That's such good information. So that was my next question. Obviously, I have plenty of people who live outside of the U.S. and, all over the globe, kind of what are good ways to choose a chiropractor. You just answered my question. So that was great. Is it okay for people to call chiropractic offices and ask for an interview, or how do you recommend they interview a chiropractor?
Yeah.
I interview all of my providers. I interview a biological dentist. I'm going to interview a chiropractor.
Absolutely. And I think it all comes down to reaching out to that office, whether it's the front desk, one of the chiropractic case managers or assistants, to be able to guide you in the right direction. If you're lucky enough to talk to the doctor, then hey, all means reach out and ask those questions as well too. You can always reach out to us also. I've given you all full permission, your audience, to email us, and we can help guide people to chiropractors that we trust, because we have an amazing network throughout the whole United States.
That's awesome.
And so we can always help guide people in the right direction to be able to help find chiropractors to be able to assist them as well.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. So I always leave my audience with some basic kind of simple brain hacking techniques. Like I think the last one I left them with was grounding.
Okay. Cool.
So, just something simple that they can implement like now, today, without killing themselves. Just a simple thing that will help guide them in their journey to better health. So do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. So when you asked me that, I was thinking of all these different things that we implement as a family, but also to our practice as well too. I love grounding. I'm so glad that you talked about that. I'll give you two really easy things. Just when you wake up in the morning, first thing, go outside and look at the sun. I think that's an amazing thing to not only help with melatonin levels, but get your body and nervous system in a really good place to start functioning properly without going straight to the blue light that you look at your phone all the time.
In fact, I would take that for a step further and resist the temptation to pick up your phone until you've done that.
You go barefooted, so you're grounding and doing that at the same time, right?
There you go.
But another one is, have you heard of the 5.5 rule?
No.
Okay, so it's very, very simple, and it's all about breathing. And so the perfect breathing technique, from what I've read, I've just finished this book called Breathe. It's amazing. I highly recommend everybody to read it. But you breathe in through your nose 5.5 seconds.
Oh.
And then you breathe out through your mouth 5.5 seconds. So you should be breathing about 5.5 times a minute for that. And that is one of the most optimal breathing techniques and strategies to not only increase your immune system function, helps regulate the vagus nerve, but a big thing with that too is adaptability and HRV. So people that follow that have a much higher heart rate variability score as well. So that's something you could easily do just while you're watching TV. Just focus on your breathing and breathing out. And that is something that you can immediately do to help regulate.
You can do that anywhere.
Exactly. So super simple. But again, most of us are mouth breathing. So we're breathing in through our mouth, out through our mouth. And that is really, really terrible for you in the long run. And so being able to switch your mindset to breathe through your nose and then exhale can have a huge impact as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great, that's a really great tip. Both of those are really great. I love the stepping outside, and just for the audience sake of why we do that, he kind of touched on that early morning light is extremely therapeutic. There's actually a pathway through our retina called the retinal thalamic pituitary pathway. And he touched on it. It helps regulate your production of melatonin, but not just that. If you have hormone issues, it's going to help stimulate and balance any disruption in your hormones, thyroid, ovarian, testosterone, estrogen, those type of things. So it is a powerful technique. And the key is that you do that first thing before you expose yourself to early morning light. And the breathing thing, that is really interesting. I've played with a bunch of breathing techniques. I like that one because it's simple. And the thing that I bet everybody's going to notice right away is that it's hard to exhale like that quick, inhalation. First of all, you want to stop inhaling around 3 seconds because you quickly inhale and then we lose our resistance when we inhale, and then our body naturally recoils to exhale. So to control our breathing to 5 seconds, that's really hard to do. I would add to it, like you did with with stepping outside first thing in the morning. I would habit stack that. I remember when I was teenager and I was doing cheerleading and I was trying to learn to do the splits. I would sit in front of the TV because we didn't have remote control. And I would watch my show. I think I was watching Bewitched or something reruns. And at the commercials, because I couldn't fast forward them, I would do my splits. That's when I would do my splits. Every day I'd watch my show and I'd do my splits. Habit stacking is the key to really building this in. So I think maybe something that would be easy to do is either first thing in the morning or sitting at a red light. Pick something that you're going to do every day and habit stack that breathing into that. You can do it anytime, but you're going to get a better habit development if you stack it with something you're already doing.
Love it.
All right. I love that. Thank you so much for this interview. I think that really helped us dig into the science without being too overwhelming. I think you left people with awesome tools for not just biohacking, but also for choosing a good chiropractor that fits their needs. I think that's ridiculously important. And I'm so thankful that you took the time to share that with everybody. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? Or
you've hit it all. Brain health, nervous system health, all of that is so important. And so the more you put your time into that now means the less you have to focus on it down the road. And that's being proactive makes a huge difference for long-term health.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to obviously recommend you go see Dr. Josh or Dr. Taylor at the True North Health Center. If you're in Colorado Springs, how can people connect with you? Do they just need a call? Should they visit your website or?
Yeah, they can call us. I'll put my phone number in.
We'll share it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll share it. And then you can find us online at thetruenorthlife.com. But yeah, we have people traveling all across the state to come see us for care. So don't just have to be in Colorado Springs, but we do see people all across the state for that.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I'll put all the connection, all the way that you can get in touch with the team at True North Health Center in our show notes today, and any kind of references that we made to things that tools or techniques or products. I don't remember. I think you mentioned a book, so I'm gonna have to go back and get that link from you. Okay. So there's a couple of things, anything like that's an asset to people. We'll make sure that's in the show notes as well. And I look forward to talking to everybody soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Dr. Sadie.
Yeah, thank you.